What is cropping up? What he said, stalkers. Zach the stock cropper being serenaded by the cockle-doodle-dooing on of our roosters on a sunny Sunday afternoon here in the northern hinterlands. We've been doing the rain dance and whining about that for the last month, and it did rain overnight. We got another 2 tenths, so we'll take everything that we can get, but it just seems like every system that blows up starts on us and progresses east and dumps more that way. But want to show you some comments around that and a few other things today. So you can see out in the where the wake of the barn is gone, we have some things that are some growth that's coming back. You can maybe see those spears, but the 2 tenths of rain that fell on that bare dirt has all evaporated already. It's a different story here in the canopy, and I wanted to show that. So I'm sitting right next to the rows of corn. You can see that nice difference where the funneling effect and the shade is still allowing the base of the corn plant to be moist. And that's one of the amazing things about the architecture of a corn plant is gives you the ability, even when you don't have a lot of rain, to make rain for the roots and funnel it right down to there. So we're still hanging. Although our ear potential is starting to be pulled back. I had an ear that I shucked here somewhere. Here it is. To show you where we're sitting. This is on the outside row again that we've got at about 55 to 60,000. So pretty good ear here. This one's, you can see it's tipped back quite a bit. They're not all going to look like this guy, but we've got a number of nice ears that are pretty dense. And again, not showing the stress on the west side of the row. East side of the row more fired. Got a little bit different color to it. So I'm not going to spend a lot of time on the animals today. We still have some chickens for sale for those of you that would like to buy some of these birds. We're going to be butchering them in the next 3 weeks at some point. Juice is going to do some weights and measures of the birds to see where they're at. And I'm still thinking Labor Day weekend is our time frame. The pigs are doing their thing. This is just an awesome set. Probably the nicest set of pigs I think I've ever had. They're just all really handsome animals and doing well. The sheep and the goats are doing the sheep and goats thing. They don't have any trouble grazing things down relatively quickly. Again, the pasture and the Sudan grass is coming. It's getting better every week, but and we don't have too much left in this second run here. So I think we probably have about, I think this week, yeah, there should be the last week in this run. So by next weekend, we should be moving, or we might operate here on the headlands. So yeah, so that's kind of the update. So we got another chance of rain tonight. There was talk that an MCS might drop out of South Dakota into western Minnesota and possibly clip northern Iowa tonight. So really hope that happens, because we are still really dry and living on fumes right now. But there's worse places than here, but it would really be fun just for this project especially to be able to finish our last couple runs with some really nice lush pastures fueled by some rains. Had a comment online this week from an astute viewer that said, you know, if you're planning on rotating and growing corn back in the strip next year, you got a big gap where you're not putting any manure on the strip that you're on right now, and how are you going to grow 400 bushel corn on the outside rows next year if you're not laying down animal manure so that you can get all the way over to where that is. And that is exactly correct. The reason for that, if anyone else has been watching and thinks this looks a little wider, is because I was an idiot when I was counting rows in the heat of the battle when I planted the pasture strip. this spring, and then again with the corn. And so we have, instead of a 8-row wide pasture strip, I think this is 9 rows wide, 9 30-inch rows wide. So that's why it looks like this. On the next run, it'll look more like it should. You know, we designed this thing so that we could still be able to navigate, because we've got this, you know, the outside drive wheel that takes up space. One of the things that we've talked about, though, is making the wheel, or making the pen, wider for next year, so that it can encompass more of that space and make sure that we're distributing manure all the way across with the animals and the barn animals, and then the chicken tractors as well. So good observation, good catch. Basically, Zach was an idiot and could count. That's the explanation. Somebody we haven't featured, which we didn't know whether or not she was going to make it, but this is our chicken that got, I think, caught in the back of the chicken tractor about 3 or 4 weeks ago. And Juice told me about her one day, and I said, let's pull her out of there and let's put her in a kennel and see if we can nurse her back to health. And so yeah, that's what we did. Juice actually gave her some shots of penicillin. Her leg was pretty injured and all infected, so we gave her some micro injections of penicillin and got her nursed back to health. And she actually is putting weight back on the leg again, but probably still not well enough to get introduced to the chickens. But Juice made her this lovely suite with her own personal feeder and her own little water drinker that he rigged up so that she can survive. So we call her Lazarette, which is the female form of Lazarus. For all of our biblical scholars out there, that should make sense. So just on my way back from the cropper, looking at some fields tonight, and had a few more comments to make. So one of the questions I've gotten quite often from folks that have been curious about the project is, well, are you really going to make that much more money growing chickens and pigs and sheep instead of just growing corn out there? And which I kind of chuckle at, because I don't know if I'm the only one, but I'm really not probably making any money this year, 280 corn, unless somebody else has got a better calculator. They got 320 bushel an acre plugged in, but those aren't my numbers. So in all seriousness, to answer that question, let's just look, for example, at our chicken enterprise and what we're hoping to net off of our chickens. So we're going to grow about 200 chickens, hopefully, this season, assuming we don't have any catastrophes between here and the end of fall. And if we're able to do that, we're hoping that with given our costs and kind of the current market pricing for animals raised in that fashion, that we're going to be able to make or return to labor roughly $4 to $5 a chicken. And you know, so I only went to Iowa State, but if you take 200 chickens times $4 to $5 profit a bird, you end up somewhere between $800 to $1,000 an acre of net profit back to that acre of land. So if I compare roughly zero, which my corn acre will likely produce for net profit or return to labor, versus $800 to $1,000, I think my Iowa State math would lead me to believe I would need to put an alligator mouth facing to the left, or the $800 to $1,000 price range, as being more. So, and then we have our pigs and our sheep and their contribution margin to add into, you know, that equation too. So why are we able to do that? Well, it's because we're eliminating a lot of the pieces in between that the normal, you know, the vertically integrated chicken industry would have, where we're not, you know, we all the pieces that the middlemen in between would be extracting, except we're going to keep that ourselves on the farm. And that's where those dollars come from. And that's really what we're driving after with this system, is how do you find ways to go direct to consumers with the things that you produce, with a unique story, so that that the farmer who holds the value, who has the stewardship and the care of the land, can hold more value at the farm gate. That's what we're driving for. And, you know, for those of you to say, well, this is not something that can, how many people can really do something like this. So I had a guy by the name of Brian Gwynn from The Ohio State University send me a direct message here this morning with a stat that he said you should play with these numbers around poultry production in the United States and just see, even if 1% of poultry production could be shifted to a system like this, how many barns or pens or how many producers could that potentially set up to produce animals in this fashion. And so that's what I did. So the numbers that he gave me projected, I'm just going to make a lot of rounding here for the raw numbers, but essentially the U.S. produces about 60 billion pounds of poultry for broiler meat in a year. And so if we take that and divide it by roughly 6 pounds a piece, that gets us about 10 billion birds that we produce in this country every year. So if we take 1% of that 10 billion, we end up with 100 million chickens that could be assumed grown under a system like this. And with the schematic that I've got set up, which is going to be designed roughly for an 80-acre field, that would call for about 9,000 chickens on an 80-acre field, which results in about 11,000 80-acre fields that could be set up in stock cropping. And each of those 80-acre fields would have about 30 stock cropper barns on them. So for those that say, well, this is cute, but how much could you actually do, and would that be significant? I think giving the opportunity to 11,000 farmers that want to stay in business and do things a little bit differently and potentially make a good living for their family on 80 acres in this system is something worth considering. And that's what we're shooting for. We're trying to reach that goal, and when with the help of people like Brian kind of helping us put that in perspective, those are some pretty powerful numbers, and gives me some hope and some motivation to keep cooking on this thing. So that's it for today. It's still a dry evening in Winnebago County. We're hoping for the shot of rain to come through maybe later tonight. We'll see what happens, but onward and upward. Have a good week.